Hi guys, Christy here with another episode of Dog Training at the Kitchen Table. And I wanted to talk about an event that happened on Sunday afternoon. On Sunday, a girl was attacked in the neighborhood by a neighbor's dog. And per usual, when things like this happened, media want to get involved. I was contacted by 2 news stations, and I did speak to 2 news stations because I felt like for 4 years I simply was not heard. Not by friends, not by family, not by law enforcement, and not by animal control. I truly wasn't heard. At one point, I told a man that if these dogs ever got out, I was certain that they would kill someone. Namely me. I was concerned about myself at the time. I was really concerned. A lot of their aggression was coming towards my yard and me and my dogs, and so I was really convinced that it was going to be me. But neither here nor there. I was certain that an attack would be life-threatening. I understand that law enforcement and animal control cannot act outside of the law. So sometimes their hands are tied. Even if there are reports being made, there's only so much they can do. And I understand that you can't arrest someone until the crime is committed. In this case, that someone was a dog. So I'm not trying to place blame, but I really wanted to be heard. And as news would have it, they can only keep a fraction of what you say for the point of their story. So I really wanted to make this so that I could get my full point across. When events like this take place, people want to look for abuse. They want to have an explanation why a dog can turn into such a monster. Last night's news report and an article I read this morning said that the dogs were kept in tiny crates in a tiny room. The house was in abhorrent condition, but the physical condition of the house would not be cause for a dog to become aggressive. That's human emotions. Dogs don't care if the dishes are piling up or if the carpet is urine soaked. They don't care about things like that. Those are all examples, not literal. But dogs don't care about things like that. They do care about time spent. And I wanted to have this conversation because I want to shed some light on what I truly believe is the cause for this attack. But this explanation is going to be hard to listen to because it will force people to look at exactly how they're raising their dogs now. Not just bad men with bad dogs in a bad condition, but we're talking about society as a whole, looking at how they're raising their dogs now. I'm going to tell you that, of course, those dogs weren't crated all the time because they were charging my fence. They were barking at me through the window while I played with my dogs in the backyard. Of course, they were not crated all the time because he was able to get out the door and attack a girl. Had he been in that crate that they say he was in, that wouldn't have been able to happen. A little bit of anger in me, a little bit of frustration, because again, this is what society wants to think and feel. Society, because they don't want to admit that we are raising dogs incorrectly. It is really hard to look at ourselves, and it's really hard to hold ourselves accountable. But these dogs had the freedom to charge a neighbor's fence. They had the freedom to bark out the window and to become frustrated enough to be mad at the world. They had the freedom to charge out the door and attack a mailman and attack a girl playing on the street. It's a whole lot of freedom and not a lot of being locked up in a tiny crate in a tiny room. I was called the other day. A woman wanted to rehouse her dog, temporarily, mind you, because her dog had jumped over the fence and attacked a neighbor's dog. The injuries of that dog required him to be euthanized, so essentially her dog jumped a fence and killed her neighbor's dog. She did not ask how she could ensure that this would never happen again. Instead, she asked if I could just rehome him temporarily until this whole thing blew over. No accountability and a great deal of freedom for him to run the fence for a year, becoming frustrated at the neighbor's dog enough to finally take action and jump over and kill the dog. Someone came into the store one day and wanted CBD oil for her dog because her dog was tearing up the house. Her dog had been tearing the house up for 8 years in what she called separation anxiety. For 8 years. And now she was trying to sell that house, and she needed the dog to stop eating the drywall, the carpet, and the furniture. So she now needed some magic drops that would solve all of her problems. For 8 years, her dog had the freedom to destroy the house. And in all 3 scenarios, and that's a fraction of the scenarios I could give you, in all 3 scenarios, the dogs had a great deal of freedom and access to distractions and motivators that would frustrate them. For all 3 scenarios, they were living with people who did not care enough about their behavior, their training, and adequate exercise. So this isn't just about a bad guy in the neighborhood who didn't do enough for his dogs and was cruel and abusive to them. This is about the general public, because in all 3 scenarios, the same atmosphere created frustration. That frustration just happened to manifest differently. For one dog, it was attacking a girl. For another, it was attacking another dog. And for another, it was attacking the home. But either way, the same atmosphere created the same frustration that just manifested differently. We as a society have to care more. This is not about loving our dogs. Daily, people come into the store and ask me for indestructible toys because their dog is destroying the house. This is daily. This is on a constant basis. This is not 1 or 2 people that don't care enough. It is the entire world. In fact, I would tell you that the people who actually do care are far and fewer between than those who don't. Just some of us don't have dogs that attack people. But every day, people walk into the store asking for indestructible toys. And I ask them, how much exercise does the dog get? And that exercise would be actually my solution to them destroying the house. And they say, oh yeah, we know, but it's just so hot outside. It's not hot at 5 a.m. and it's not hot at 10 p.m. Find a different time to walk your dog than in the blazing sun. Sometimes it's all about time. Oh, we just don't have the time. We both work full-time jobs. So to me and my husband, I walk my dogs every day. I find the time. If you don't have time to provide your dog with adequate exercise and adequate training to keep their behaviors in check, then you do not need a dog. You don't have the time for one, because exercise is the easiest thing for us to provide for them. It is as easy as going for a walk. That is it. I was reflecting on this situation with this attack, and I'm out walking my dogs in a brand new park. I'm so excited to take them somewhere new and give them new things to sniff and a new experience to have. And I can't help but to think about that scene in Legally Blonde where she says, she was exercising. Exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy, and happy people just don't kill their husbands. Happy dogs do not destroy your house. Happy dogs do not destroy your yard. Happy dogs do not attack your neighbor's dogs, and certainly do not attack children while playing on the street. That doesn't mean everyone is perfect. It doesn't mean your dog will never bark. It doesn't mean your dog will never have a moment of upset. But when you care enough to provide your dog with adequate exercise, adequate training, and you care enough to keep behaviors in check, meaning you manage their environment, you manage them, you manage their environment, then you have a happy dog who is so much more easily controlled and isn't doing extreme behaviors. When we look at dogs rescued from hoarding situations, and they're kept in isolating conditions, cramped conditions, we don't see dogs mad at the world. We see dogs terrified of the world. When we see dogs rescued from puppy mills and they're kept in tiny cages, and they really are kept in those tiny cages, and they're isolated from the world, and they really are only used for breeding, we see dogs terrified of the world because they don't experience it. They don't know anything about it. But what happened Sunday was not a dog terrified of the world, not even remotely close. What we saw on Sunday was a dog who was so frustrated at the world from never getting into it, from never experiencing it, and always being reinforced, self-reinforced by barking at it through the windows, constantly chasing it away. When he finally had a chance to get out, all that frustration hit that little girl full power. Had he truly been always kept in a crate, he would have been too terrified of the world to leave. This is all so hard for us to accept because right now, the majority of the country, I would argue the world, the majority of the country has food left down for their dogs all day long. Freedom, free access to food. If it's not down all day long, then it's just delivered. Here's your bowl. No discipline or structure asked to receive it. Right now, the majority of the world their dogs have free access to toys, chew bones, constant freedom, free access to these things with no structure or discipline asked to earn them. They have free access to the house and typically even free access to the yard. All of these things, freedom to food, to toys, and to freedom in movement, are always given in abundance because someone is avoiding actually doing something with their dogs. They want the toy to entertain them. They want the bone to entertain them. They want the yard to entertain them. The owner is failing to provide adequate exercise with the dog. You and the dog together. Play a game of fetch. Play a game of tug. Take your dog swimming. Take them on walks. Take them on adventures. If it really is too hot outside and you really are concerned about safety, there are stores that allow your dog to come in. There are lakes and rivers and creeks to go play in. There are other things to do to provide exercise. But exercise will be what really helps keep your dog an optimistic, happy dog. We need to stop looking at abuse as just tiny crates, as just using dogs just for breeding. We need to quit looking at abuse as only being physically hit or kicked. We need to quit looking at neglect as just being sort of left behind or kenneled and sort of forgotten about, because everyone is doing a hell of a job neglecting adequate training, adequate exercise, and keeping behaviors in check. It's a lot of work. It is a lot of hard work, especially if you have multiple dogs. But you're the one who brought them into your house. Take charge of the beings living in your home, the lives you have chosen to have in your home, or do not have dogs. I want everyone to get out and have fun with their best buddies.